Imagine waking up in the morning to find that the face of China's most powerful leader has vanished from every newspaper, every television screen, and every digital billboard. Not just a fleeting absence, but a comprehensive erasure. His speeches are omitted from the nightly news, his family's name is missing from a brand new national memorial, and even government websites are quietly scrubbing his image from their archives. And in an age where leaders seem ever-present, this sudden disappearance is jarring. Why is Xi Jinping, often heralded as the eternal core of the Chinese Communist Party, slipping into the shadows, just as China faces some of its greatest internal and external challenges, which is truly happening within the world's second-largest economy? And how might this moment reshape the future, not just for China, but for the global order itself? To unravel this mystery, let's begin with Xi Jinping's origin story, a saga deeply intertwined with the very heart of modern Chinese history. Xi Jinping was born into what is often called China's political aristocracy. His father, Xi Jinping, was not just a senior official, but a revolutionary titan. In the 1930s and 40s, Xi Jinping was instrumental in building the Communist Party's stronghold in the rugged mountains of Shaanxi province. After marching alongside Mao Zedong at the conclusion of the Long March, a grueling, year-long trek that forged the party's mythos, Xi Jinping climbed rapidly through the ranks. In the years following the revolution, he became governor of Guangdong province, where he oversaw the creation of the very first special economic zones. These zones, launched under Deng Xiaoping's reforms in the late 1970s and early 1980s, would later transform China into an economic powerhouse. By 1982, Xi Jinping had been elevated to the Politburo, the Communist Party's highest decision-making body, and his official obituary would later hail him as an outstanding proletarian revolutionary and one of the main founders and leaders of the revolutionary base areas in the Shaanxi-Gansu border region. This storied heritage, these so-called red genes, provided Xi Jinping with a powerful springboard. He is the most prominent of the so-called princelings, a generation of children from China's revolutionary elite who have dominated politics for the last several decades. For Xi, the family legacy was more than a historical footnote. It was a shield and a sword, a source of legitimacy and authority. Yet, the story of Xi's family has become a political barometer. When a highly anticipated primetime TV drama glorifying his father's life, Time in the Northwest, was abruptly pulled after only 2 episodes, and when Xi Jinping's name was conspicuously absent from the dedication of a major revolutionary memorial in Shaanxi, China watchers across the world took note. In China, the language of power is often spoken through omission, not confrontation. As a recent Chinese émigré dissident explained, "I realize now that I was fortunate to live in a golden age of freedom and prosperity. That era is over." For more than a decade, Xi Jinping has ruled China with what many describe as an iron grip. He has centralized power to a degree unseen since Mao, orchestrating sweeping purges of rivals, installing loyalists in key positions, and personally directing everything from military affairs to economic strategy. His image has become omnipresent in state propaganda, his slogans recited in schools and offices, his policies shaping every sector of society. But in the past year, and especially in recent months, cracks have appeared. In the final weeks of May, Xi all but vanished from public view. The state media, which has for years been saturated with his visage and rhetoric, suddenly shifted its tone. Where once it praised Xi as the single, indispensable authority, it now extols the virtues of collective leadership. Even academics from prestigious universities, previously silenced or punished for mild dissent, have begun to publish essays critical of Xi's approach to economic and social policy, without immediate retribution. Perhaps most tellingly, Hu Jintao, Xi's predecessor and erstwhile rival, who was famously escorted out of the 20th Party Congress in a humiliating episode, is now regaining visibility. State media has begun to echo Hu's signature slogans, emphasizing scientific, democratic, and law-based decision-making. Meanwhile, other prominent figures such as Wang Yang, a reform-minded former party secretary of Guangdong and one-time Politburo Standing Committee member, are increasingly mentioned as potential successors or power brokers. This is not just a tale of elite intrigue. The stakes are enormous. China is home to nearly 1.5 billion people, and its economic pulse is felt in every corner of the globe. Today, China is grappling with the aftermath of a strict and, by many accounts, disastrous pandemic response. Lockdowns that dragged on for years battered consumer confidence and stifled economic recovery. The real estate sector, which for decades underpinned China's explosive growth, is now in crisis. Once mighty developers are defaulting on their debts, home prices have fallen sharply in major cities from Beijing to Shenzhen, and local governments are drowning in unsustainable debt. Youth unemployment has surged to unprecedented levels, with some estimates suggesting that as many as 1 in 5 young people in urban areas are unable to find work. In a country that once promised boundless opportunity, many members of Generation Z are now giving up on the China dream. Thousands are leaving the country each month, seeking better futures in North America, Europe, Australia, or even Southeast Asia. The term "run philosophy," a pun on the Chinese word for run now, trends on social media, reflecting a widespread sense of malaise and disillusionment. Foreign direct investment, once the lifeblood of China's economic miracle, is evaporating. In the past, global companies flocked to Chinese markets, betting on endless growth. Today, with mounting regulatory risks, unpredictable policy shifts, and an increasingly hostile environment for foreign enterprises, many are scaling back their operations or pulling out entirely. The Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission, a powerful body that Xi once used to spearhead his economic agenda, has barely convened this year. Its silence is deafening. In the military domain, the tremors are just as profound. The Central Military Commission, where Xi holds the crucial position of chairman, has begun to meet without him. Generals once regarded as his closest allies, particularly those from his Fujian political faction, have been arrested, dismissed, or simply disappeared. General He Weidong, a vice chairman of the commission and a key member of Xi's inner circle, was suddenly detained in April. Admiral Miao Hua, another loyalist, was placed under investigation and stripped of his post for serious violations of discipline. Even Xi's personal security detail has reportedly been reduced by half, a move that many analysts interpret as both a sign of vulnerability and a concession to rival factions. Gregory Slayton, former United States Consul General, remarked, "His loyalists in the military have been purged, his personal security detail has been halved, propaganda featuring him has dropped off." These are not trivial changes in a system where symbolism and perception are everything. Behind closed doors, whispers of profound change are growing louder. Is Xi Jinping orchestrating a careful, managed succession, a way to step back from the limelight while safeguarding his family and legacy? Or is he, as some suggest, losing his grip in the face of mounting internal revolt? Why are even his most trusted allies vanishing, while old rivals, some thought permanently sidelined, are now emboldened? The world is watching intently. The question on every diplomat's mind is, what happens if Xi Jinping truly loses control? Who would dare step into the void? And how would such a transition unfold in a country where abrupt change is often synonymous with chaos? Let's consider several possible futures. The first and most dramatic scenario is a full-blown power struggle within the Communist Party. Imagine the world's second-largest economy suddenly thrown into disarray, with rival factions, one loyal to Xi, another to resurgent figures like Wang Yang or Hu Jintao's network, jockeying for dominance. The stakes would not be limited to Beijing's inner circle. Such a conflict could send shockwaves through global markets, upend trade flows, and destabilize regional security, particularly in sensitive areas like the South China Sea or across the Taiwan Strait. Gregory Copley, president of the International Strategic Studies Association, has stated bluntly, Xi Jinping has already lost real power. If this judgment proves accurate, then China's much-vaunted stability is little more than a brittle shell. The last time the Communist Party faced such a leadership vacuum was in the late 1970s, after the death of Mao Zedong, a period marked by uncertainty, infighting, and a scramble for direction. Back then, the outcome hinged on the party's ability to yield to reformers like Deng Xiaoping, who ultimately set China on a path of modernization. Could history repeat itself? Or would today's infighting produce only paralysis? The second, more optimistic scenario is that of a managed transition. Here, key party figures would quietly engineer a soft landing, gradually sidelining Xi while elevating proponents of moderation and collective leadership. Reform-minded officials like Wang Yang might take center stage, offering a pragmatic approach to China's economic and diplomatic challenges. The recent unveiling of the Central Party Decision-Making and Coordination Body, a new institution designed, at least in theory, to check the power of any one individual, could be a mechanism for such a shift. Yet even a peaceful transition would be fraught with risk. The purge of Xi loyalists and the systematic silencing of his family's legacy suggests that no change comes without casualties. The power struggles of China's past have often been accompanied by sweeping anti-corruption campaigns, large-scale arrests, and campaigns to rewrite history. In the 1980s, following the fall of the Gang of Four, China underwent a brutal period of introspection and retribution. Could the next few years see a repeat, with new waves of purges and ideological campaigns? Of course, there is also the possibility, however diminished, that Xi manages to claw back his authority. This would likely mean a doubling down on repression, more intensive surveillance, expanded loyalty tests for bureaucrats and military figures, and a renewed cult of personality. The apparatus of state security, already among the world's most sophisticated, could become even more aggressive. But with the economy stagnating, the youth deeply disillusioned, and even the once monolithic People's Liberation Army showing signs of fracture, this path appears increasingly fragile. Catherine Hu, a respected Chinese analyst, summarizes the paradox. Xi Jinping just placed on the table a brand new system, one designed to strip away his own authority, and he did it with his own hands. This may be the ultimate irony, that the leader who sought absolute control may have undermined his own position by concentrating so much power that resistance, once it emerged, became overwhelming and impossible to suppress. The consequences of these scenarios extend far beyond China's borders. A weakened or distracted Chinese leadership could mean less investment abroad, more erratic economic policies, and rising instability in regions from Southeast Asia to Central Africa, where Chinese projects and money play a vital role. For investors, this spells volatility. The yuan could swing unexpectedly. Supply chains might be disrupted. The prices of everything from electronics to rare earth minerals could fluctuate wildly. At the same time, a transition to more collective leadership could open the door to renewed dialogue on thorny issues like trade, climate change, and regional security. Some experts argue that new leaders, free from the burdens of Xi's personal legacy, might be more willing to compromise or experiment with economic reforms. Yet there are no guarantees. China's history is replete with cycles of reform and retrenchment, periods of opening followed by abrupt crackdowns. The 1980s saw cautious relaxation and innovation, only to end in the trauma of June 4, 1989, and the reassertion of authoritarian control. What does all this mean for you, as a global citizen, an investor, a business leader, or simply someone fascinated by the forces shaping our world? First, it's a powerful reminder that in authoritarian systems, change can come overnight and without warning. Headlines from Beijing are not mere background noise. They can shape global stock markets, dictate the fate of entire industries, and even influence the cost of living in cities thousands of miles away. For investors, the message is clear: diversify, hedge against China risk, and prepare for sudden policy shifts. For business leaders, adaptability is essential. Regulatory environments can change at the stroke of a pen, and what was once a promising market can quickly become a minefield. Second, resist the temptation to view China's rise as inevitable or linear. While China remains a technological and economic juggernaut, its path forward is anything but certain. The country's explosive growth and innovation are still very real, as seen in fields like artificial intelligence, green energy, and manufacturing. But stagnation, internal dissent, and even sudden shifts toward openness or reform are all possible. Victor Xi, an expert on Chinese elite politics, notes, Xi might pay less attention to day-to-day details, which necessitates a policing mechanism to ensure that his policy priorities are still being carried out. Yet such mechanisms often breed resentment and passive resistance rather than genuine compliance. Third, and perhaps most importantly, stay curious and skeptical. In China, what is not said often matters more than what is. The stories that disappear from the newspapers, the faces that vanish from collective memory, and the rituals that change without explanation. All these are signals. When Xi's father's name was erased from the Revolutionary Memorial and his biographical TV series was pulled, it was not an accident, but a message to insiders. The winds are shifting. It's worth recalling how, throughout Chinese history, the erasure of a leader's family name from monuments and textbooks has almost always heralded the end of their era. In the waning days of the Song, Ming, and Qing dynasties, similar patterns of omission and rewriting foreshadowed seismic change. In the post-Mao years, the rehabilitation or condemnation of former leaders signaled new directions for the nation. Today, the pattern is repeating before our very eyes. The international implications are profound. As China's political direction grows murkier, other global powers, from the United States to the European Union, from India to Japan, are recalibrating their strategies. The uncertainty is felt in everything, from climate negotiations, where China's cooperation is critical, to meeting global emissions targets, to the ongoing technological rivalry over semiconductors and artificial intelligence. Even the selection of the next Dalai Lama has become a flashpoint, with Amnesty International warning that the Chinese authorities' efforts to control the process are a direct assault on freedom of belief. Within China, the impact of this political turbulence is already visible. Social media is abuzz with speculation, satire, and coded criticism. Dissidents mark the 10th anniversary of the so-called 709 crackdown on human rights lawyers, drawing uncomfortable parallels between the current climate and earlier waves of repression. Meanwhile, the business elite are hedging their bets, moving assets abroad, or sending their children to study overseas. The sense of uncertainty is palpable, extending from the corridors of Zhongnanhai to the bustling streets of Shanghai and Guangzhou. So, is Xi Jinping truly losing power? The evidence is mounting. The purges of his loyalists, the deepening economic malaise, the re-emergence of old rivals, and the subtle but unmistakable shifts in state propaganda all point to a leader in trouble. Whether he ultimately falls, fades quietly into the background, or stages a dramatic comeback, the repercussions for China and for the world will be immense. Let's not forget, in China, every time a leader's family legacy is erased from the historical record, it signals the beginning of the end for that era. We are witnessing history in the making, and the outcome is still unwritten. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which scenario do you believe will shape China's future? Are you preparing for the unexpected twists that global politics can bring? Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore how the world's leading technology giants are quietly navigating China's opaque political